Tonight's video is very brief, and it's just to go back and revisit the strategies and the purposes of the second stage of the writing process, or drafting. The learning targets or the learning intentions for this video: when you finish the video, you should be able to use your pre-writing work to create a rough draft of your memoir. In order to be able to do that, you're going to need to get from the video what the process of drafting involves, the kinds of thinking skills that you need to apply to your drafting process, and to be clear about why you're drafting. And I'm going to assess your understanding by seeing if you can complete a rough draft with a clear structure that we can actually work on to revise. What is drafting? Well, if you look it up in the dictionary, I quote, "It's a preliminary version of a plan, a document, or picture." It doesn't tell you very much. The only thing that it tells you is that a draft is something that isn't finished. And I'm not sure a lot of you understand that. A rough draft is not the finished copy. The first time you begin to put your ideas onto paper, beginning, middle, and end, is exactly that, the first time. What you may not know, or what I'm pretty sure you don't know, is that drafting is just allowing yourself to be pulled into your topic and letting it carry you along. You've thought a lot about your ideas during pre-writing, you took a lot of notes, you wrote small, you gathered information, you've isolated the points that you want to make, and now all drafting is taking the power of those ideas, putting them down on paper. That's it. It's not being finished, it's not being done. It's the beginning of a process. Drafting is hard, and there's a couple of reasons why. One of it is self-consciousness. That feeling that you're doing it wrong, that what you're writing is stupid, that it isn't clear, that it doesn't make any sense, that it's full of mistakes. It's going to embarrass you. All that does is slow the drafting down and make the process last longer than it should. And it's not correct critical thinking. We're going to talk about the purposes behind drafting, and all of these feelings about it being stupid or wrong don't fit with those purposes. Drafting isn't really about what you're doing, it's about not doing something else. Don't psych yourself out, don't make yourself afraid, don't be concerned that it's incorrect or that it's not good enough. Because here's the deal, you can't draft incorrectly. The only way you're going to draft incorrectly is not to draft. Not to write a narrative. Narrative is connected, a beginning, a middle, and an end, with cause and effect, with that inner arc, that interior story arc, and that exterior story arc that we talked about in the last video. Other than that, you can't do it wrong. I borrowed a memoir from a resource I used to make this video. It's a book by Steve Piha called The Writing Process Notebook, and he says drafting is like playing a video game that you have with an endless supply of quarters. If you end up crashed, so what? You put another quarter in and start again. Well, drafting is the same way. If the drafting turns out badly, big deal. You pick up your pencil and you start again. There's nothing to lose. But you also are not going to gain anything if you can't get your ideas on paper. So you need to just dig in and get your ideas down. As soon as you've decided what to write about, and for this particular project, it is that one aspect of your identity, that one trait or that one quality you have that you've chosen, and the events that you can trace back in your life as to where those events came from. Once you've decided what that is, once you've sketched out those thoughts and you've gathered small, all that's left now is to write it down, and don't stop until you get to the end. Don't stop and fix it. Pick up your pencil and go. Use the pre-writing you did for inspiration, but you're not tied to that. Feel free if you need to change things here and there. Your pre-writing material is just meant to get your thinking going, to prime the pump, to guide you as you wind your way through this very early stage. And please remember that drafting is very early. You're only drafting. You still have a long way to go. There's going to be lots and lots of opportunities to change what you've written, to review, to revise, to add, to subtract. Do your best, but don't get bent out of shape about this. It's not a final copy. I can't tell you how many conferences I've had in the last 2 days with people that have this neatly written rough draft and they say, I'm finished. No, you're not. Each attempt, you'll get a little closer, and that's the goal of creating a piece of writing that says exactly what you want it to say, exactly the way you want to say it, but your rough draft is just a first step. Don't get sucked into it being anything more than that. If you draft on paper, write on every other line. It makes it easier to revise. And only write on one side of the page, please. If you write on both sides, then you can't cut and paste, and you end up wasting time copying. If you draft on a laptop, use about a 12 or a 14-point font. Don't do anything bigger than that because it wastes paper and you don't get connected thoughts on a page. Double space your document so you can revise it more easily. The first time you complete a rough draft, use the save button. Every time after that you make changes and save it again, use save as. That way it gives you a record of where you've been and where you're going. Every now and then, print a hard copy and put it in your folder. You know, remember the hanging folder in the file cabinet drawer? Every now and then, you need to see the complete draft on the page in front of you. And if you're drafting on a laptop, all you're seeing is what the screen can hold. So I probably should have added that. Every now and then, you need to print. Remember that the purpose of drafting is to get your ideas down on paper in some kind of shape, a beginning, a middle, and an end. That the question you're trying to answer is, what is my message? What do I want the reader to feel? What do I want the reader to know? What do I need to include? Where does it begin and where does it end? That's it. And those are the questions you need to focus on. Remember that you write a rough draft to give yourself something to work with, a place to begin. Your rough draft is never your finished project. Almost no one has the talent to get it right the first time, not even a professional writer. It took Ernest Hemingway 6 years to draft The Old Man and the Sea, and that's a little novella. It took him 6 years. None of us are as good as Ernest Hemingway, believe me. And remember that writing is thinking, and good thinking is hard work. So that the draft is your first step towards the critical thinking, the hard work that it takes to write clearly and to be able to move your reader in ways that you want to move them. Some WSQ reminders. This video is short, so watch it carefully. Rewind it, pause it, review it to be sure you're clear about its content, because I'm going to hold you to it. I expect you to take good notes. Make sure you are actually thinking about the content and not just copying this slide by slide. Copying it slide by side is exactly that. It's copying. It's not note-taking. Note-taking implies that you're thinking, that you're synthesizing, that you're thinking about structure of the information, where are the main ideas, where are the supporting details, and what is just extra fluff. Think about main ideas and look at the learning targets at the beginning of the video. Write an effective summary, and please pay attention to this. I'm going to count this summary as a test grade. So when I see you in class tomorrow, I am going to give you about 5 or 6 minutes and a small piece of paper to copy the summary out of your notebook onto the paper. You won't have time to write it from scratch in class. So spend some time on this and do a good job. It's like an open notebook test. And finally, create one question to test your understanding of the content. And now we dance.